good morning. It's 10 o'clock. Welcome to Lincoln Ware Live. We're here every Sunday morning from 10 until 11. And as usual, we've got a great show lined up for you today. The first half of the show, we're going to talk about domestic violence. It is National Domestic Violence Month. And we'll talk to Theresa Singleton from the Greater Cincinnati YMCA. And on the second half of the show, we'll talk to Deana Taylor, a human resource specialist. We'll talk about discrimination on the workplace. We'll talk about hostile work environments. We'll talk about whatever happens in the workplace with Deana Taylor. She can answer all your questions. So get ready. If you want to dial in, the phone number is 513-381-3838. That's the number. And we'll start the show off. Welcome to the show, Theresa.
Good morning, Lincoln.
It's always good to see you. National Domestic Violence Month. I know the YMCA take in thousands of calls every year, domestic violence, and sometimes you just wonder, why do people treat other people this way?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to recognize that domestic violence is a societal issue with implications far beyond the individual family. And no matter where folks stand on the issue, I think that we can all agree that no one deserves to be abused. And the YMCA, of course, provides shelter and a variety of services to men and women, but we can't do it alone because the need is too great. In Hamilton County alone, the YMCA and Rape Crisis and Abuse Center field probably 20,000 calls annually.
Wow.
So it's a very serious problem.
And I'm sure there's probably somebody out there watching today, right now this morning, that's probably experienced domestic violence last night.
Or maybe right at this moment.
And they will tell you, well, you don't know, it's tough to leave, and I don't know what I would do. How many times do you hear that women say, I just can't leave, I have the kids, what will we do?
Well, women face a lot of barriers, and women stay in relationships for many legitimate reasons. Primarily because they fear if they leave, they'll get killed. And you know what? The good news is most victims don't get killed. The bad news is for those that end up in the morgue, they were in the process of leaving or had already left. So we have to be really careful when we encourage victims of domestic violence, male or female, to leave the situation.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that sounds like a quick fix. I'll just leave, everything will be all right. Well, what about women who leave and they're stalked and harassed? And I'm working with a woman right now who's experiencing that. She left 6 months ago. She's not safe. So I think that's why shelters are so important, because if abusers can't find victims, they can't kill them. But before we encourage victims to leave, we need to understand that their safety may become actually more volatile
if they leave.
So we need to do safety planning and help women or men interested in leaving remove barriers, and that can be housing, children, it could be any number of things.
Okay, what is the process if you get a call from a lady that's saying she's being abused by her husband and she's ready to leave, and they call you, what is the process? What steps are taken from that point?
Well, if a caller calls the hotline, we do a really brief assessment. The only criteria is if you feel like you're abused, you are, and we believe you.
So if you just feel like you're being abused,
yes,
that means
that's
you are.
right. That is exactly right, because how can we judge? The most important thing we can do for victims is believe them. So when the YMCA Battered Women's Shelter serves 65 women and children at a time, we frequently go over that number. So what we do, we prioritize. If a woman is in imminent danger, or other words, she has lethality, her abuser threatened to kill her, maybe he has access to weapons, we're going to try to get her in as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we may do safety planning and make other referrals.
Now, what if they don't have a car or anything? Do you come pick them up or what?
No, we're not permitted to do that because there's too much danger associated with it. But we'll work with police. We'll find a way for her to get to our pickup point, which again is in a confidential location. And once she gets to that pickup point, then we arrange transportation. We never bring anyone directly to the shelter.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll take your calls, 513-381-3838. 3838. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back and let Theresa answer your questions. If you have any questions, it's National Domestic Violence Month, and Theresa's with the Greater Cincinnati YMCA. We'll be back in a moment. And we're back live. Lincoln Ware Live is the program. Don't forget, coming up on the second half of the show, Deana Taylor, Human Resource Specialist, will talk about situations in the workplace. And we were talking earlier, there's domestic violence in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Now, what does that mean?
That means that sometimes victims experience harassing phone calls, particularly when there's a separation. Victims may be stalked at work, called. A lot of times victims lose their jobs because of the danger that an abuser creates in the workplace. So the YMCA works with employers to help victims stay safe and to create a safer workplace.
Right, and you get these guys, they threaten, I'm coming up there on that job and
That's
pull,
right.
you know. And yeah, so.
And there's a lot of liability associated with not responding to a victim in the workplace. For example, if a victim has a protection order, and a company says, well, you know, that's a personal issue, we're not going to deal with it, and then the victim gets killed, there's liability associated with that. As a matter of fact, employers in the United States lose $3 to $5 billion, not million, $billion annually because of domestic violence associated medical costs, loss of productivity, and other issues. So it's a very serious problem.
Wow. All right, let's go to the telephones, 513-381-3838. Let's see, we lost Kelly. Let's go to Mary. Mary, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? You're looking awful handsome in
Well-
your outfit.
Well, Mary, I told you about that. You better watch yourself.
Yeah, you look real good.
Make sure you get out of bed before you watch me in the mornings.
All right. I want to say that I have been through all this domestic stuff, and I think the best thing to do is to run fast as you can and get out of Dodge.
Okay, run where? Run. I mean, what if you don't have any money? Where are you going?
If you got a job, you leave your job and go and stay with relatives if you got relatives.
Okay, why would a woman have to quit her job, leave her job because of some knucklehead?
Because if you don't, somebody's gonna get hurt. Because you'll wind up, he'll shoot you or you'll shoot him, because that's where it ends up. That's the final line. Somebody go to the gun, and most of the time there is a gun, and you go kill them. And if you kill them, you'll never get over it, because I've had that in my family.
Yeah.
And I know it's a horrible thing. Now, if you've got little children, you need to still get away. Go to a shelter, because it's not going to end. It only gets worse.
All right, Mary, she makes a good point. You need to get away. That's the first thing.
Well, that's true, but when you get away, it's important to have safety in place, whether that's leaving town, changing your social security number, which is possible now, having a very strong safety plan. Protection order, protection order is great, but it's just a piece of paper.
Right.
But I'd like to say to Mary, she sounds like a wonderful survivor, and I'm glad that she got out when she did.
Well, like you say, protection orders nowadays, they're just a piece of paper. You can go down and fill one out and have one issued, but if the guy wants to get to you and you're available there, he'll get you.
Yeah, well, if an abuser isn't afraid of consequences, it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
A lot of victims end up dead with a restraining order in their purse. So it's important for victims to not to assume that a safety plan will keep them safe.
Now, when you talk about domestic violence, I mean, it could be, not just physical domestic violence. It's also,
emotional abuse, psychological abuse. And I think it's important for your audience to understand that there is a difference between domestic violence and intimate partner violence. If I go home today and I call my husband a despicable name, that's not domestic violence. However, it is abuse. I'm not going to go to jail if I call him a bad name. If I go home and hit him and I call him a name and I attach a threat to it, then that can rise to domestic violence. But a lot of times victims experience humiliation and degradation over a period of time, and it really chips away at their self-worth. And it's important to remember that abuse is about power and control. It's about when one person tries to have power and control over the other person, and they use a variety of tactics: physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, pet abuse, financial abuse, and it always includes a pattern of behavior. We're all human, we all have flaws, and sometimes we say things that we don't mean, but what makes us different from abusers is we take responsibility for our actions and try not to ever repeat the behavior. Abusers don't do that. They don't take responsibility.
All right, let's go to Kathy. Kathy, good morning. You're on Lincoln Ware Live. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good.
Well, not very well, but I'm doing.
What's your question?
Well, I'm in a workforce and I'm in a difficult position. I am an auditor. So what I do is I find errors. I have been verbally assaulted 3 times in the workforce. And so I was removed from the department. I was put into another department. The person who verbally assaulted me in the first department made her presence known in my second department. She had worked there for 10 years plus years, so she has close relationships with other people in that department. Since then, I had worked there, and there were 2 complaints about some unprofessional behavior, but they have been rectified. You know, it was nothing serious. You know, it's just, talking over loud machinery, which was just misunderstood.
And you know, your question may be a good question for Deana Taylor, our second guest, but I don't know whether that would qualify as domestic violence.
Well,
and
when it went one step further, that my boss told me that someone said in that department that I had said that I was going to write a manual on how to kill him.
Oh boy.
And I did not say that.
Okay, well, do me a favor. Call back in about 15 minutes. Deana Taylor will be here, and I'm sure she'll have the answer as to what steps you need to take in that workplace to make sure you're covered, your bases are covered.
Okay, and the number again is?
513-381-3838. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Call back as soon as you see Deana Taylor in here.
Okay, bye.
All right, thanks. That sounds like a workplace situation.
It is.
I don't know whether that could turn into it. I guess I don't know.
Well, it's certainly not domestic violence or intimate partner violence. And what I would say to that is we all have a right to be safe in our workplace. And if you are concerned about a threat, a physical threat to your safety, document your concerns.
Yes.
Go to your supervisor, unless your supervisor is actually the one perpetrating it.
Right.
If not, go above, go to your human resource personnel and take it from there. But always document your concerns.
All right, we'll take another quick break and we'll come back and take more of your phone calls right here at 513-381-3838. Lincoln Ware Live right here on a Sunday morning. We're here every Sunday morning. And we'll take a quick break and come back with Theresa Singleton from the Greater Cincinnati YMCA. YWCA.
That's right.
And we're back live talking to Theresa Singleton from the Greater Cincinnati YWCA. And it's Domestic Violence, National Domestic Violence Month. And we're taking your calls, answering your questions on domestic violence. Let's go back to the telephones. Let's go to Rose. Good morning. How are you, Rose?
Oh, I'm fine, Lincoln. How are you?
Pretty
and
good.
How are you, Theresa?
I'm good, thank you.
Number one, your phone should be jumping off the hook.
It is.
Okay, because I mean, it only rung one time for me, and I was like there.
Well, you're lucky.
Yeah,
You
okay.
probably called as soon as the other caller hung up, and you eased right in. But
Yeah, because on
we've
the
got
subject-
plenty of calls. That's why you got to hurry up and give us your question
Okay,
so we can
well,
move
I'm
to the
here.
next one.
Hey, basically, it was a statement, and Theresa already made that about control and power. This is what basically it is. You know, domestic violence. Who's going to have the control, men or the women? Now, there are some women that, you know, overpower men, you know, and they're in control. And that's basically what I was calling for, you know, and there are many different ways you can do it, you know, money, like you said, sex, who's got the most this. And then there are some men that get upset because the wife is smarter and things like that. So, you know, he's got to be in control because of this and that.
She
and
makes
so
more, she's, you know, the whole bit, and he's sort of feeling like second fiddle around there.
Right, you know, and that makes him feel like he's on the downside and he's not number one. Or if he doesn't have a job and the wife has a job and he's not the breadwinner, or she's making more money than he is. And, you know, it's a whole lot with that. But it's all about power and control. And if most women could understand this, you know, they could beat that. They could beat it. If they have to leave, you know, go on and leave. But if they can stand up to the man and, you know, let him know that, okay, I'm going to leave because this is just a game that you're playing, power and control, and I'm not with it, so you stay here and play this game by yourself.
All right.
Me and my kids are leaving.
Okay. Thanks for your commentary.
Okay.
All right. Let's move along. Let's go to Pam. Pam, good morning. How are you?
It's Pat. Good morning.
Okay. How you doing, Pat?
Fine. Listen, I have a friend that's in a domestic situation. She's not married to the man, but they've been together 6 years. She has 3 children. He had one. He's abusing her verbally, talking to the children and doing them any kind of way. He want to put her out. They've been together for 6 years. Is common law still legal here in Cincinnati?
No, it's not. In Ohio, common law is not recognized any longer in Ohio. But what should she do? They're not married, but she's living with him, and she probably...
He doesn't have anywhere to go.
Right, yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for caring about your friend.
Thank you.
Second of all, when you talk to your friend, make sure you don't talk to her about this in front of her partner.
I
because
don't.
it might, thank
He's
you.
my nephew.
Okay. What I would encourage you to do is say, look, you know, I don't know what's going on in your relationship, but nobody deserves to be abused.
I've talked to her about it because anytime you abuse a woman and her children, it's everybody's business.
Well, if the children are being abused, then I think that maybe a call to 241 Kids might be necessary, because I know that may sound harsh, but 241 Kids can help a battered woman and children get into our shelter immediately. Otherwise, if you have her call the shelter, if you have her call the shelter, or you can have her call me at the YWCA.
I sure will. Wait a minute, I'll get your number.
I will get her into shelter immediately if she's willing to go. You can't force her to go.
No, she's working. She's really looking for an apartment. She's trying to find something in subsidized that she can afford.
Well, the YWCA's apartments available for women and financial assistance. So if we can get her into the shelter, we can help her.
Okay, what's your number, please?
And I think we might flash it up on the screen also, but go ahead and give the number.
872-9259.
872 what?
872-9259. And you can call me directly at the YWCA at 241-7090 on Monday, and I'll help you directly.
Thank you so much.
Look up on your TV screen, make sure you have it correctly.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. And when you mentioned have her call 241 Kids, a lot of mothers who have kids, when you say that, they get afraid, you know, oh, they're going to come take my kids away.
Well, that's not the way it works. And, the 241 Kids isn't about taking children away.
That's what they
their
say.
whole goal is to keep families together. But the fact of the matter is, if kids are witnessing abuse, and it's chronic abuse, they suffer terribly. As a matter of fact, I can't even articulate to you how danger it is for children to be exposed to domestic violence. There's credible studies that suggest that children from birth to 6 years who are exposed to chronic violence can lose up to 8 IQ points.
Wow.
It causes a host of problems that kids carry with them for the rest of their lives.
And then they end up, if they
It's
see
a learned
abuse, they end
behavior.
up being abusers.
Not 100% of the time, but a lot of times. As a matter of fact, boys who witness violence are 1,000 times more likely to grow up and be abusive than boys who don't. So we have a stake in this because it diminishes the quality of life for everyone. So I don't mean to sound harsh when I say 241 kids, but children need to be protected.
All right, let's go to Tina. Tina, how are you?
Hi, Lincoln. How are you this morning?
Pretty good.
To your guest. The question I want to ask is, there are so many people that have graduated from college and with medical degrees in the psychology field. As far as the shelters are concerned, men and women and children, the abuser and the abused, both need counseling and good advice, because more often than not, they do stay together. And as far as 241 kids are concerned, they do separate the family permanently.
Okay, hold on right there. Now, as far, do you keep a record of how many people you have put in a shelter,
Oh, yeah,
end up going back and...
We have a very low recidivism rate, but more importantly, let me address this woman's concern. First of all, I agree in part that abusers need counseling, and the YMCA runs a treatment program for abusers, but it's important to know that counseling for victims and perpetrators needs to be done separately. Couples counseling and mediation don't work. As a matter of fact, they increase the danger for victims and children.
You are right, and that's what I was talking about, because some husbands, the boys become abusers and the girls become abused, but both become followers as adults.
Well, and I think it's also
separate counseling, but the men really want to find a way with good advice, good counseling, to be good men to their families. They really do, because it ends up killing them when they don't find the answer, and they usually end up having heart attacks and strokes and leaving the earth. And they feel that's the best way to get out of the situation, to give the abused a chance at life.
Okay, well, she was never going to stop, but anyway, she makes a good point. Psychological, they need counseling.
Well, you know, I think it's dangerous to suggest that battered women need counseling. Certainly some do.
Yeah, I think the batterer needs
That's
counseling.
exactly right, or incarceration, or both.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'll give you an example. Women come to the shelter and they say, you know, I feel crazy. I feel like I'm losing my mind. And within a couple of days, they start to feel okay. You know, it's not normal to walk on eggshells. It's not normal to live in fear. So certainly women are going to suffer from PTSD or depression, anxiety. But usually when they're removed from that situation, or if they remove themselves and they have safety and support, they get okay.
All right, let's make the final call a guy. Let's hear what a man has to say this morning. William, how you doing?
Yes, my name is William. I'm calling in regards to domestic violence. To me, it is, it's ridiculous. I mean, some men can beat women, some men want to fight another man. And some women will, hesitate that on with another man, knowing he won't hit her.
Okay, and you saying all that to say?
That strictly, whoever the perpetrator is between the man and the woman, or the father of the children or the mother of the children that's harming each other should be automatically locked up.
Okay, so you're saying if a man abuses a woman, he should be locked up?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, also if you abuse kids.
All right, thanks for your call.
I agree with that.
All right, okay. I think we had time for maybe one more quick call. Who am I going to? Can you help me out? Okay, Michelle, real quick.
Yes, Lincoln. How are you?
Okay.
I'm calling because I hear they saying they have shelters for abused women. I know that there's a lot of abused men, and I was wondering, do you have shelters and help for them also?
Yeah, what if a guy calls you and says, my wife is beating the hell out of me and there's nothing can you help me out? Do you have help for a man?
Yes.
And it's hard for a man to call up and say his
Yes.
wife is beating the hell out of
That's
him.
a
Because
barrier.
if that was happening to me, I don't think I'd let anybody know.
And you're like most men who experience that. But we have a variety of programs, including the father and son program, which I wish I had time to tell you about. But certainly, if a man called, we would find a way to assist him. Because the bottom line is no one deserves to be abused.
All right. Thank you for joining us this morning, Theresa. And the phone number, give the phone number once again.
872-9259.
There it is on the screen. Thank you. We'll have to have you back again sometime. We
I'd
won't
like
wait
that.
until it's National Domestic Violence Month to have you back. We'll have you back before then.
I'd like that.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and hear what Deana Taylor has to say right here on Lincoln Ware Live. We'll take a quick break and come right back. 513-381-3838. That's the number if you want to talk about anything happening in the workplace. And we're back live. Lincoln Ware Live is a program. And the second half of the show, I promised you we'd have the HR director or specialist. I like to call her an HR specialist. She says, I'm a director, but specialist sounds a lot better. Anyway, Deana Taylor is my guest, and we're talking about workplace situations. We already had a call for you early about a workplace problem, but yeah, what if you are experiencing a harassment in the workplace? And maybe let's cover a situation if it's not your supervisor, just another fellow employee. What do you do if they're giving you a hard time?
You have to make your supervisor aware of it. You can't just hold it in or ignore it because it's just going to get worse, and it's going to the person is going to think that it's okay to continue to do that, and it's going to escalate. You have to let your supervisor, and again, if that supervisor isn't available, then you go up the chain of command or to human resources.
Okay, now what if it's the supervisor?
If it's a supervisor, then you would go up the chain of command. A lot of people aren't aware of like the Anti-Harassment and Anti-Retaliation Act, which is really just saying that if you report wrongdoing in your company, if you report that someone's treating you wrong or doing you wrong, then they have a duty to react, and in return they cannot be retaliated against.
Okay, yeah. What if they say, okay, we're going to just terminate your employment, you're fired? Then you have grounds for a suit if they do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of attorneys that are looking for those type of suits. So yeah.
Now you need to document everything that's going on.
You need to document, but like I say, don't let it get to a point where you're trying to build a case. I think what I see a lot is where someone will say, okay, I'm going to write this down, I'll write this down, until it gets to a certain point where they have all this information and you're not looking for help when you're really trying, if you're just documenting. You need to make it someone aware of it so that you can correct the situation.
All right, 513-381-3838. If you're having problems on your job, give us a call. We'll try to work you through it and see if we can get you some help. Now, what about let's see, it was one question I wanted to ask you about the workplace. Now, say for instance, you're working and maybe another employee says, I'm going to get you after work, away from the workplace. That way you can't call the supervisor. What if something happens away from the workplace, but you work together, but it happened at a bar or something?
You should report it to your supervisor. Let them know, the situation. But still, even if you're off the job and you're not at work, as an employee, you still have a responsibility to be loyal to your company. You have to act a code of ethics. You have to treat your staff, your coworkers, yourself, and the company in an ethical manner. So it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering because if it happens away from the job, then a lot of people think, well, the job can't do anything about it.
They can't. If the person feels uncomfortable, then regardless, if they still feel uncomfortable coming to work, as an employer, you have a duty to protect and make sure that that person feels protected.
All right, boy, every line is busy. We must have a lot of problems in the workplace here in this town. Gee, let's get to the phones right away. Where are we going? Okay, Kia, how are you?
Hi.
How you doing? What's your problem?
I had a question. This is a simple situation that happened to me like a while ago, but I just had a question about it in the workplace. Like, what can you do, like, if you're trying, like, to get out of a group that you're in? Like, say, like, you have a problem with your manager, and they, like, set a lie on you. What do you do, like, if you go to human resources and then, like, you go to their manager, but they, like, believe the manager over you because you're, like, just, I guess, basic employee and they're higher up than you?
Yeah, normally, you know, you think that human resource is going to take the side of the manager before they take the side of the employee. But that's a good question, man.
Right.
Thanks.
The one thing you have to remember that, you know, human resources is transparent. They should be transparent. They work for the good of the company, not for the managers, but just transparent where their job is to make sure that the staff are hired, protected, and treated fairly. If you want to get into a certain group, I say the best way to go about doing that is to still do it in a professional manner. A lot of people think that just because they are on the job that they have a job, and that it's okay that they can then act any kind of way. The best thing to do is, if you feel that it's not the right situation for you, look for other positive alternatives so that you're not because the longer you're in that situation, the worse you're going to feel, and the worse the outcome is going to be.
Now, we get in a lot of reports around the country where people are hanging nooses in the workplace and things like that. What if you come in one day and you see something like that, swastika or something like that? What do you do? Should you take a picture of it? Or should you go right to the supervisor? Maybe the supervisor's in on it.
No,
so what do you do?
Again, that's harassment. You know, you have to let the supervisor know. You don't go to the staff person. If you do, you should do it fairly. You should not in a confrontational way. But swastikas, I can't even say crossing. You know, it sounds bad to say that, but some people don't believe in having your cross, your Bible, anything that's displayed for someone could be offensive to them. So all of those things should really. There's no place in the workplace for that.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll come back and take more calls. Every line is busy. Whenever one becomes available, we'll see if we can talk to you. But we'll take a quick break and come back and hear more from Deana Taylor, Human Resource Specialist, right here on Lincoln Ware Live. Back in a moment. And we're back live. Lincoln Ware Live is the program. And we're here every Sunday morning, and you don't want to miss it. Tell a friend to tune in every Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. Deana Taylor is my guest right here. Now, before we go back to the telephones, I've got a couple of questions. I was at a job fair this past week, and I saw some lady brought her kid to the job fair, and a lot of these companies were interviewing on the spot, hiring on the spot. I don't know, if I'm an employer, and I'm doing and you bring your kid, I'm saying, well, maybe she can't find a babysitter and she might miss a lot of work because she can't find a babysitter. I mean, is that a good thing to do or what?
It really isn't a good thing to do, but you don't really know the circumstance. Something could have happened with daycare, and she really wanted to be there to look for employment. So you got to give her credit for at least coming out and looking for employment. However, it's very important to not give employers any more information than they need. The only thing they should know about you is your employment history, your credentials, your education, and if you're going to be loyal and an ethical
They don't
employee.
need to know if you got kids or not.
Kids, husband.
If they ask if you got kids, that's ground.
illegal.
Yeah, that's illegal. They can't ask that.
Right, they can't ask you that. Are you married? What church do you belong to? Any of those things are illegal.
What if they give you a trick question like, what school do your kids go to? Can they ask, you know, and then you can say, well, yeah.
No, they can't ask you that.
See, that's what I would do.
You would redirect the question in a nice way.
Oh, okay.
There's professional interviewers out there who know how to redirect it so that you can steer clear of that type of question.
Okay, all right, let's go back to the telephones. Let's go to Kathy. Kathy, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Good. What's your question?
Well, I'm in a job situation where I was verbally assaulted, well, first 2 times. And management said that they would take care of it. And it seemed to be okay. And I had a one-on-one with the woman that, you know, I had the altercation or whatever with, and, you know, everything seemed to be okay. However, out of the blue, she verbally assaulted me again. I'm an auditor, So, it is my job to, catch mistakes. She did accuse me of changing policies, which I do not have control. I am only an auditor. I'm not management.
Okay.
I said that, this needs to be addressed, address it to your manager. Your manager has the power to make the changes.
Okay, try to sum it up real quick. So what's your question? Do you have, okay, we know all that happened. That management tried to do something. They tried to solve it, but apparently they didn't. Now where does it stand?
Well, I was moved to a different department. And this is a department where this woman is very close with a lot of the people. She's worked there for 10 years. And now, all of a sudden, out of the blue, I was accused of saying that I was going to write a manual on how to kill my manager.
So she lied on you?
I don't know if it was her.
Uh-huh.
They're not going to tell me who it was.
Okay, so what did the person you supposedly wrote this about, what did they say to you? Did they call you in?
My manager called me
Okay.
in and let me know that this was said about me. And he has given me an oral warning, and I'm terrified of losing my job.
Okay.
I don't know what's going to happen next.
Hang up and listen, and Deana will tell you what steps you can take if you've got an answer for her.
Wow, I don't know if I really have an answer for her. When someone just brings that to a manager's attention, he should have some type of information as to where that came from. So I would, again, document the entire conversation, but go on with my job. And I wouldn't talk about it with anyone. I would not, make sure that whatever you do is not construed as being hostile or negative. If it feels like you want legal representation, by all means, call someone and just let them know your situation and your story. But while you're at work, I would continue to work as normal. I would continue to just be as professional and not focus on the negative. What happens is when others are aware of how you react to things, and they know what to do to get you to continue to react. And I know that's not an easy answer, but remember this also. All employment isn't something that you're supposed to stay with for 30 years or 20 years. When it feels like it's not a good fit for you and it's causing you stress and anxiety, then it may be time to seek other options where you are more valued and where you have other options.
Right. It sounds like she has the skills to work pretty much anywhere she'd like. Natasha, good morning. You're on Lincoln Ware Live. How are you?
I'm good.
What's your question?
I was wondering what type of recourses can I have, because I was terminated from a job, and I think it was stemming behind some harassments that I was receiving from an employee who was directly over me and the supervisor who was directly over her. And they let it not be known that basically they're friends, they go way back, and the employees were just dismissible.
Okay,
Now, what was the reason for your termination?
They cited I didn't call the supervisor when I called off.
Is it true? Did you?
I didn't call her number her personal line directly, no. But I called the line that I usually call whenever I have called off.
I mean, did you leave a message with a human or on the machine?
On the machine.
But you said you've done this in the past. Were you
Right.
ever written up or
No.
talked to about this? So they used that one instance to terminate you?
Pretty much.
What I would do, again, I hate to give like advice if I don't know the complete story, but what I do want to say is if you know what's happened while you were there and you can show proof that you were treated unfairly because of a workplace relationship that got in the way, then there's other options. You can always, the EEOC will take complaints from. All you have to do is complain and say that you were terminated for grounds, maybe it was harassment or just an unfair work environment. However, you have to have proof. Don't go in with just a few dates and you perceive something to be a certain way. You have to make sure that your facts are accurate. But again, as far as being terminated from a place of employment for a rule violation, find out why if other people were treated the same way. And that's another way. You know, you can't just enforce one rule on one staff person if others aren't following that same.
So EEOC would be probably her next step.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for your call. Let's go to Kim. Kim, you have a question? Kim.
I was calling to ask a question. I have having problems with my sister-in-law, and she keeps calling up to my job, trying to find out if I still work there, she knows a few of my coworkers, and she's asking them, am I there? And a coworker told her I was fired, which I'm not fired. I'm just on vacation. And she just keeps calling. My supervisor is telling me that she's been getting too many personal calls, and I don't know what to do.
Okay, first of all, why is your sister-in-law calling you at work and she can't call you at home?
She don't have my number, but she want to know what's going on with me because she don't get any information from nobody.
Yeah.
Just basically harassing, and somebody at my job that she knows are feeding her back information about me.
And that's really a really unfortunate situation because you really can't control what another person does. I would let your supervisor know that this is something that you're not encouraging, that you don't want this person to call you, even though this person is calling, you're not talking to the person. You know, get the and at some point maybe the employer can put an order saying that this person cannot contact or make any contact with the company. But don't just let it go. Tell your supervisor that you're not encouraging this and you're not comfortable with this, and you want this to go away. That's
tell them your supervisor. I mean, your sister-in-law is harassing you, and you just don't want to talk to her.
You don't want, and you're not encouraging her to call, and so on.
Right.
Okay, because you still have a right once you go to work to feel safe.
Right.
All right. Thanks for your call.
Thank you.
All right. What a sister-in-law to have. Gee. All right, where are we going? 513-381-3838. Jeff, how are you?
I'm okay. Yes, I was calling. Lincoln, where in some cases, when you do things like I did it when I was working for Ohio Department of Transportation, I have filed a charge. We had some person at the job said I was going to kick the boss in the butt. They took me to court. I go to court. I win downtown in the court system, and they found me not guilty. And then as soon as I got back to work, I had another hearing against me again at work, basically saying that, hey, them charges downtown is irrelevant from the charges that's held here up in the state office, and stating that I said I won't kick the employee in the butt. Now, I worked there 13 years, and at that time, all the time that I had worked there, I have been, physically harassed, and, verbally harassed. And one employee took the sewer top off while I was jackhammering. I fell through the sewer main, and all these papers are documented. I kept every one to this day. I still have those papers, and they still terminated me. And I basically felt like I got trial twice in that situation.
So I guess when a case like that, he can just maybe if he can afford to hire a lawyer and sue the company, I guess.
Right, but
well, I did have a lawyer, and the lawyer that I did have, he backed out on me and said he couldn't. Before we were supposed to go to court, he backed out on me and said, well, he couldn't handle this case. Because to find out he had people that was dealing in the state system, and he backed out on me. Now I went to court on my own, and the judge said, well, I'm going to dismiss this without malice, and I never returned to, to go back to the court system because it took me financially empty, mentally, it drained me out, and it just got to the point that, I kind of like gave up. But now that I'm kind of back on my feet, it still kind of affects me from getting the jobs that I should have with all the qualifications that I do have.
Okay. Thanks for your call, Deana. What should he do in a case like that?
I don't know what he wants to do, first of all. It looks like he's looking for another place of employment. If you're looking and you're having a hard time, I still say be honest with the employer. You don't have to go into much detail about why you left the employment that you were currently at or recently with, but just be positive and whatever. And if, again, the one thing, and I tell this to a lot of people, when you are interviewing and they ask you certain questions, make sure that you say that this was a terrible situation, some events occurred that I had no control over, whatever the case may be, but then turn it into something that is a positive. What did you learn from this situation, and what was the outcome? What are you going to get from this for your next employer? But when you say you had documentation of this and that and so on, you can't bring that after the fact. If an employer brings something up and says that you were guilty of A, B, and C, and you say, yes, employer, but you were guilty of C, D, E, and F. If you didn't bring that up when it was occurring, it's almost irrelevant.
Oh, so you need to do this before you get fired or anything.
Right.
Okay. Now I see. So if you bring it up before you get fired and then you end up going to court, then that's going to weigh heavily in your favor.
Right, but if you say, I think I was terminated because of this, this, and this, and the employer, first of all, maybe was not made aware of what was going on, or you chose not to act on it, then, because you have a duty to report things that are going on in the workplace also.
All right, let's go to Rose. Rose.
Hi again, Lincoln.
How did you get through again? And we got other callers, people who haven't been on once, that want to get in here.
Okay, here we go.
And quickly, let me get a new caller. But what is it? Can you do it in 30 seconds?
Yeah, I'm gonna try real quick. Okay, people that work at a job, they get their checks messed up, and then when they complain about it, they still don't get them right. They complain again, then their boss, supervisor, gets uptight with them, and then some of them lose their jobs. Some of them quit because of this, because they don't stand a chance. The other is about...
I only had time for that one.
Okay, I'll get you back on the other.
Okay, thanks.
Everyone has, legally, if you work, you have to be paid for that work. If a check is messed up, and I see it happen sometimes just because of hours not reported, or maybe the payroll system was faulty, or there was an accident. However, the thing that I'm not hearing and I don't know is when you are bringing this to payroll's attention or HR's attention or your manager's attention, how are you doing it? Because you still need to confront whatever seems unfair or not right. You still have to do it in a professional manner and not a way that's going to tear down a relationship.
All right, we're out of time. Deana Taylor works for the Lighthouse Youth Shelter, HR director over there.
Lighthouse Youth Services.
I'm sorry, Lighthouse Youth Services. She's the HR director over there. And if you need to contact her, just contact me and I'll get her the message at 513-679-6028. Thank you, Deana Taylor. You've been a plethora of information.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break and come back, wrap things up with the talk of the town right here on Lincoln Ware Live, back in just one moment. And we're back to wrap things up with the talk of the town. Coming up at noon today on It's 38, The Trip, starring Heather Shrake and Larry Bagby. And if you want to see a rebroadcast of this show, Channel 25 tonight at 8 o'clock, a rebroadcast of this show. Then after the rebroadcast of this show, guess what? I know you love The Trip so much, you're going to watch it again tonight on Channel 25 at 9 o'clock following this show. If you want to reach me, call me at my phone at 513-679-6028. Leave a message. I'll get back with you. And you can check me out Monday through Friday from 10 to 1 on 1230, The Buzz of Cincinnati. That's going to do it. I'm out. Till next week.